You kind of hit on the raw milk and stuff. So I know that there's pros and cons. People are, oh, that's great, or oh, well, it should be pasteurized. Give us some of the benefits of the raw milk and being able to have your own and the cream and all that kind of stuff that you can do. What are some of those health benefits?
Right. Yeah. So there is a little bit of controversy on the topic of raw milk. It's really interesting that it has been criminalized for so long. And that history actually goes clear back to 1812. After that war, the United States lost a lot of their imports that were coming in from the British, and one of those was liquor, and so that's motivating. And so Americans had to start figuring out how to produce their own liquor, and towns were forming. We were starting to move away somewhat from that rural living and starting to have towns, and that was starting to form. And so they had to figure out how they were going to provide for those populations. And so they had these liquor distilleries that were creating, distiller's mash, the cast off from that process. And, they needed milk cows to provide milk for their communities. And so they started the first confinement operations. We talk about confinement operations now. Well, that was really the first confinement operations for dairy cows. And they used this cast off mash or swill from the liquor distilleries, and they thought that would be a good diet for the milk cows. But it was just the perfect storm of conditions, right? If you think back to then, they didn't understand sanitation. Workers had diseases like tuberculosis. They didn't understand cleanliness. The cows, were confined where it was dirty. They were fed a poor diet, which decreased their health. And so raw milk had issues then. But
it was the perfect storm.
Yeah. What's strange is for some reason it just didn't overcome some of that stigma. Because now obviously we have refrigeration. We understand bacteria growth and how to use proper sanitation to avoid those problems. And so it's strange that we still struggle with some of that. There's organizations like the Raw Milk Institute, which I've taken classes from, that talk about sanitation and cleanliness and proper handling. And so there's just so much knowledge now on how to produce raw milk the right way that I think it's good to know your producer. Like, I love when customers ask me questions about my processes, but it's come so far that there's no reason to have some of those same fears that there used to be. And so, we can take advantage of the health benefits, which are numerous. Raw milk is a complete food. It has everything you need. You could actually live completely on raw milk. In fact, the Mayo Clinic did a lot of health, wellness, disease treatment with just a raw milk diet decades ago. And so you can live on just raw milk alone. It has great immune boosting properties. It has wonderful benefits for children that grow up on it. There's a lot of European studies where real foods are accepted a little bit more than the United States, and they show significant decreases in asthma, eczema, allergies from children that grow up on raw milk. I get wonderful stories from customers. Like, that's the best thing about being involved in this now. I've sold raw milk for about 10 years, and being involved in it that long, I always hear wonderful stories from customers about how, it's actually lowered their cholesterol. It's helped with skin conditions like rosacea and eczema. It's helped even with things like ADHD, autism. Like, it's amazing. But our body needs real food. And so that's kind of what it boils down to. Raw milk is a real food and provides a lot of nutrition. Lactose intolerance is pretty much non-existent when you drink raw milk. I have dozens and dozens of people that have said, "Oh, I can't do milk, lactose, it just eats me up." And I said, "No, enzymes are very heat sensitive. So they're the first thing that gets destroyed in the pasteurization process. Well, lactase is one of those enzymes. So in raw milk, lactase is still present, which helps with that lactose digestion. And so every time somebody tells me they have a lactose issue, and I say, well, I know it's a little hard sometimes if it upsets your stomach, but be brave and try this. And they'll come back and say, yeah, I had no digestive distress at all.
I can remember my dad had cancer, and of course we went to MD Anderson and spent a lot of time. And I remember one of the things him and his doctor talked about, he had an older doctor, and they talked a lot about if we went back to eating like we did back in the 1800s when you still grew your food and you had your chickens and your milk cow and you were very self-sufficient, the diseases probably wouldn't be as prevalent as they are now with all the pasteurization and the processed foods and everything. And, you think about that and it just makes sense. And obviously all the babies live off of baby calves and baby goats. They all live off of a raw milk diet.
Yeah. And before there was baby formulas that you bought in Walmart, what were those babies fed? Yeah. It was raw milk from some kind of an animal, a cow or a goat. And so, we could go down a huge rabbit trail on that. I'm very passionate about real food. Yeah. If you look at the disease rates in our country, they've drastically increased since we started eating more processed foods. If you look at our disease rate in our country compared to those of other countries that still have more natural diets, our disease rates are exponentially higher than other countries. So real food would heal a lot of our problems.
And I'm guilty. The obesity. I mean, the pop, the candy, the chips, all that kind of stuff. That's not the real food. It's good, but it's not real food.
Yeah, for sure. It's easy to fall prey to all those sweet treats, and they have an addictive draw. The reaction that our body has to sugar and things is addictive. So it's kind of a tough thing to break. But real food is very nourishing and healing.